Hello, Dr. Bradshaw. Congratulations on being our new faculty spotlight.
Thank you. I'm honored.
So I think we will get right into it, and we'll start easy with you got several questions about some of your favorites. So we'll go ahead and do like a speed round for you. And you
Okay.
can go into detail on any of them if you want, but it's not necessary.
All right.
All right. So I've got this two-parter because two different students asked this first one. What's your favorite movie? But someone asked, what's your favorite movie and why should it be Star Wars?
Well, out of all the questions you sent, this is probably the one that stressed me out the most. I feel like this is the sort of thing like most 21st century humans are supposed to have an answer to. And I like movies. One way to answer it, I guess, is the movie that I stopped a couple of nights ago on Netflix and haven't had the chance to get back to. Can't really think of a favorite. I consume a lot of TikTok. I don't know if that counts. I was an actor in a movie about a year ago called The Mountain Miner. It's about Appalachian migration and traditional music. So there's that.
Cool. When did you do that? You said a couple of years ago?
Yeah, well, the filming was 2 to 3 years ago. I'm losing track of time now, and then I think it came out last year.
Nice.
Yeah. Check it out. Stream it online.
Sure. I'll try and find a link and I'll link it with your interview.
Sure. Yeah, do that.
So is Star Wars not your favorite movie then?
Oh, I forgot about that part. Well, my short answer to that is I'm not sure why it would be Star Wars. I liked those when I was a kid, but I saw that they lost me at the prequels, like the Jar Jar Binks thing, especially just like totally threw me. And then everything that's come out looks like really amazing, but I don't have the emotional capacity to catch up on all of it right now. So
yeah.
So I stick with trying to figure out Spider-Man comic books and Avengers and stay in with that continuity.
Nice. And that actually leads to the next favorite. Someone asked, why is Spider-Man your favorite superhero?
Well, that's a good question. I started reading Spider-Man probably when I was in middle school, and I guess I was always just kind of a nerd, I think, and haven't always felt like I fit in and that sort of thing. And that's the exact type of character Peter Parker was. So I think just kind of connected on a kind of geeky level. But also one of the things that's really interesting about Spider-Man is he was really a revolutionary type figure at the time because you had Captain America, these kind of big, larger than life superheroes. And then you have Peter Parker, who has to fight, villains with mechanical arms and rubber mask and that ride back gliders and stuff. But he's also dealing with just like the regular stuff people do every day. And so I've always found that compelling about the character.
Nice. So Spider-Man is your favorite superhero then?
Oh, yes, without
Okay, all right. So next, and these are kind of similar, but what's your favorite food?
Well, in general, I just like to eat food in general, but very precisely, my mom's fried chicken. And in general, I love fried chicken, but just hers is especially good. I can approximate it, and she's tried to show me directly how she does it, and I can get very close, but I can't quite get it the way she does.
That means that she needs to stay in your life then. That's her way of doing that.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite restaurant to go to in Silva?
See, I think you had these designed as like easy questions. Again, so I live out on like a little farm out in Coloway, and I don't hitch up my cart and wagon to go beyond campus very often, especially with the pandemic going on. So I like to raise a lot of what I eat right here if I can. I'm a hypocrite for even saying that because I can't sustain myself on what I'm growing. But anyway, I really like that coffee shop place, that old timey diner. That's one of my favorite places.
Yeah. Nice. And that leads to the next one. What's your favorite type of coffee?
Well, since you asked, I am a big coffee lover. I don't have like a particular brand that I like. I just like coffee. usually like a medium or light roast. But I'll drink, watered down, scalded gas station coffee if I have to. I won't hesitate. So that'll do the trick if necessary.
All right. What's your favorite thing to do in your spare time?
Without a doubt, working in my garden. So especially since since the pandemic, I feel like I've gotten almost the equivalent of a master's degree in like organic gardening and soil health. I mean, I've just dug in literally, I guess. I'm just always reading up on ways to grow things. I love like heirloom variety of stuff, and if you catch me on campus in regular times, there's just as good a chance that I'm walking around thinking about my soil or the squash that I have growing or the garlic that I want to put in the bed as it is that I'm thinking about rhetoric at that moment. So yeah, definitely working in the garden.
So I'm going to venture away from this list of questions really quick. What are you growing right now?
Oh, right now, I just dug up a week or so ago some sweet potatoes. Got a really good harvest of sweet potatoes. I've got butternut squash still out there waiting for the vines to die on those, so I can bring those in and cure them. Got walnuts that we collected off the tree that we've got to clean off hopefully this weekend if I have time. What else? There's still a few tomatoes out there, and I've got a lot of greens, some mustard greens and turnip greens, and obviously I could keep talking, but I don't think that this is what this is about. So that'll suffice for now.
Nice. So a variety.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right.
I'll say a variety.
And then the last favorite. What's your favorite thing about being at WCU?
Oh, and this is one of the things. Other than that, it's in the mountains, and I just love the mountains. One of the things that really attracted me to WCU and made me want to work here is it really is an institution that's focused on teaching. Like, there's a lot of institutions out there in higher ed that are about teaching, of course, and education. But I just feel like Western has something special about its commitment to student learning. The way that we put resources towards student learning, and that's one of my favorite things. It's not just about the research and I have to teach classes. It's people really care about whether students get it, and I like that.
Nice. All right, so that wraps up the list of favorites, and we'll move into some deeper questions. So this one might be possibly the most difficult, I would think, to answer, but what inspired you to go into the field of rhetoric?
Yeah, well, that is a good question, because for me, it's kind of like been a process of discovery. But first of all, like what I love about rhetoric is that it's about how to learn how to participate in the conversations that matter the most to you. And that, to me, I think is one of the most important things that someone can learn in a democracy. Outside of just learning how to write, I think it has it teaches us a lot of things about how to participate in our community. And I describe rhetoric to my students as how thinking artfully and ethically about our language. And what I mean by thinking artfully is think that we can be intentional about what we're doing. We don't have to be just immediately responsive to every situation that comes up and invent everything anew. We can have strategies, we can have repertoires of things to draw on and ways to communicate. And then by ethically, I mean that as a writer, a speaker, whatever you're doing, that you care about the consequences of your language. There's definitely a way to do rhetoric where you can be very effective and not care about other people. But I think that rhetoric, when it's at its best, it's not about learning and practicing a couple old esoteric Athenian or Roman terms. The study of rhetoric is at its best an ethic of audience care. And so that's why, to me, sometimes I'm mystified by when I hear writers say, well, I don't really care what an audience thinks about what I have to say. Like, writing is all about the audience. It's about the relationship to the audience. So that's what I like about rhetoric. As far as how I got into it, that was not an immediate thing because I had never been in a program prior to my PhD that taught a lot of rhetoric. When I was in undergrad, I was undecided until my advisor basically told me, you got to pick a major or there's no reason for you to be here. And so I was thinking about what I love to do, and the English program where I was at was where I would do the most writing. And so my plan then was to become a high school teacher. So I'd added on the English ed portion, and which I didn't expect to. I loved the study of literature, and then I fell in love with teaching. So I went and got my master's at Appalachian State, and there in that program, I taught my first writing class, and I just fell in love with it. And you know, so I have 2 degrees in literary study, my undergrad and my master's, but I just fell in love with teaching writing. And then I taught for a few years between my master's and my PhD, and I realized I really like doing this stuff. And I need to know more about how to teach people, as well as how to understand as a writer, how to connect with audiences. And that's where the language and the ideas that come along with rhetoric, it really, in a lot of ways, blew my mind. I wrote my master's thesis and during my master's, and I really struggled with that project in a lot of ways. And as soon as I started studying rhetoric, I realized why. Oh, I was groping around for the language of rhetoric that had been existing there for a long time, a very rich body of scholarship, and I had never engaged it before. And so that's really that kind of, I don't know where I thought. I used to think I was going to be a cartoonist. I don't know where I started, but I really discovered it. And I think a part of that is just, I've always, as a learner, tried to be open to where things take me, you know. And I think this is just one ever weird track. This brought me here to this stuff.
I still think that you would probably make a great cartoonist.
Well, I try. I doodle a lot during faculty meetings. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of answered, but you might have a different one. The next question: are there other careers you would like to pursue outside of teaching?
Yes, but don't tell my department head or the tenure review. You know, so my doctoral dissertation when I was working my PhD, it was studying communication, rhetorical strategies that Appalachian community advocacy groups used. 2 groups in particular, Urban Appalachian Community Coalition in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Apple Shop in Kentucky. And I really got excited about advocacy organizations and the rhetoric that they use. And I did consider very seriously towards the end of my PhD going more into kind of communications work with nonprofits and advocacy groups. And I thought I would give the academic thing one good go at least instead. And then this opened up at Western. And really, I thought it would be the long arc of my career to get back to the mountains again. I'd lived in Western North Carolina for years and years before studying my PhD. So I really jumped at the opportunity to come here, and I've loved it. Yeah.
Nice. So it's just more of a consideration that you've had in the past then. It's not to say that it's more of a consideration that you've had in the past then. Yeah. Not to say that you don't love teaching.
Oh yeah. It's just, I mean, but here's the thing, like rhetoric is so much about the how. You know, this is one thing that people don't get about rhetoric. There's not a set of dates that you have to memorize necessarily. It's a how knowledge. And it's like you can learn how to do things, and then you learn how to think about it like a writer. Sure, you can do that, but should you? And you need to kind of figure out what are the ethical questions I need to ask, you know, and all of that has its outlet beyond the classroom. And, you know, I love teaching, like I teach a lot of first year, second year writing in our Writing, Rhetoric, and Critical Studies program. And academic writing in academic settings is really important, but this stuff has applicability way beyond the university. And you can't help but think about ways that this may go beyond the classroom if you study it, you know. And so that's not to say I'm always thinking about ways I can get out of teaching or leave my position. Far from it. But I'm always trying to think about ways that I can guide my students' attention to writing situations beyond that classroom, or even thinking about connection or research design that goes beyond just kind of an academic outlet.
Yeah, nice. So the next question then, what has been the most important lesson you've learned? And I know this is a really hard one.
Yeah. I think I'm getting old enough that I'm having trouble with all these favorite and most important questions because things accumulate over time. But I will say something that stuck with me since I was fairly young. It's just the idea of understanding, and what I mean by that is not like literally understanding every single thing. For me, when I kind of think about that, it's more kind of understanding that I can't know everything about your experience. And and I think that's a really important thing. I think a lot of times we try to universalize our own experiences and put them over on top of other people. Early on, I think I realized that what people actually need is understanding, even when you can't understand what they're going through. And so that's something I often, I hope that I enact in my day-to-day interactions with other people. But also it's something that I do fold often into my teaching. When students are having difficulties with things, you know, I'm always I care about whether a student succeeds more than I care about an arbitrary due date, you know. And so I want people to stay on track, and then I'll help them do that. But I think always just extending understanding, even when you don't really understand what that experience is like. I think it's a pretty important, I guess maybe just what I described as empathy, and I probably could have said that in a shorter answer. So.
Yeah, but I think it's nice that it kind of explained what empathy is in your answer.
Good.
Yeah. So some other questions that I've been asking everyone then, because that wrapped up the student questions that were sent in. How long have you been teaching, and how long specifically at WCU?
Yeah, so I'm in my 5th year here at WCU, but I've been teaching writing for 14 years. And so I taught during my master's degree. I taught for several years in the Boone area, Boone, North Carolina area, and I taught all during my PhD, and then taught here. I'm the Writing, Rhetoric, and Critical Studies program director, the WRCS program, which oversees the 1st and 2nd year writing here, so English 101 and 203 courses. And I've been in that gig for 2 years. And prior to that, I was assistant director of composition at Appalachian State for a couple of years, and then a couple of years at Miami University in Ohio. So I've been at the game for a while, but only about 5 years here at West.
Yeah, nice. That just gives us a little background, I think, on you and your teaching career. So last question, what advice do you have for students?
I would say the number one thing, there's just like 1,000 different things to say here. You know, if you want to get all my advice, take a first year writing class with me. I'll there. But I would say my big point of advice is to stay in communication. And this is one thing I'm always telling students. Like, human life is messy, and things come up, you know. And it's important though to stay in communication with with friends, with family, but also, you know, in an academic setting with your professors. I never worry about the student who is emailing me with something that they're struggling with, and that we talk about alternate ways to turn something in or how to complete an assignment. I never worry about that student. The student I worry about is the one that I never hear from. You know, the student who never asks me a question about anything. And so I would say just always stay in communication. As you know, I'm in an administrative position, and I find that some of my biggest regrets end up being those emails that I look at and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that right now, you know, and then I'll get to the email, and then it can cause a problem, you know. So kind of you always want to just, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a rhetorician. Communication's pretty important, you know, and communication is always about that connection with the other person. Even if you're sending a very technical email to someone, you're building a relationship with that person. So I would say just stay in communication, ask questions, even volunteer ideas. I love when I get an email from a student that's just suddenly excited about something. They don't have a question. They're just like, oh, look at this thing I read. You know, you sent me an article a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's one of those emails I didn't reply to for a while. But you sent me like an article, and it's like a great article, and I love that. You know, so just stay in communication, I think, is one of the best things a student can do.
Yeah, definitely. Now too,
yes,
it's even more important.
Yeah, I think we're all experiencing sort of holes in our social life and our academic and professional lives right now, and I think I'm probably guilty of this too, because I don't have very good internet out here, and I'm buried down in Colloy, you know, and I get huddled down here. But even so, it's important to stay in communication with other people.
Yeah. Well, that about wraps up our little interview. Is there anything else that you would like to share during your time in the spotlight?
Sure. Since you asked, and we were talking about gardening earlier, I thought I would share with you. Just look at this wonderful squash that I grew.
Oh my goodness!
Incredible thing. It's this Italian zucchini squash. It starts off as like a small green slender thing, really good to cut up like tender and green. And then it look what it does, and you can make like great soups out of this. I've got butternut squash that I've been growing around here. Here is this is not our biggest one, but this pumpkins. My daughter has dressed it up as like a princess here with a crown. But this is a really good pumpkin that a friend of mine, heirloom seed from a friend of mine, Brett Riggs, who's in Cherokee Studies. And then this is the last thing, I promise. Like, look at this sweet potato. This is not even the best specimen, and they're kind of even connected here. But I mean, look at that thing. That's a big potato. So anyway, that's where my head is right now. I probably should be working on a research publication or something. But that's those are a few things I've been pretty excited about lately.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap up. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Well, congratulations again, and have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.